Good morning. Today is the second day of Nisan, and in the special readings of today, we're up to the tribe of Issachar, the tribe that corresponds to special thought. Their sense was the ability to think deeply, especially everything that has to do with mathematical calculations. They were the ones who were responsible for the calendar and for actually corresponding each of the tribes to their particular month of the year. We say that came from the tribe of Issachar. But getting to our reading today, the sixth reading, so I said yesterday that I'd like to go a little bit back because there's something that amazing that happened this week. It happened on Tuesday. I was asked a question, and I didn't even notice that on Wednesday the answer was in the Torah reading. So the question I was asked was this: that we usually say that the word melech, king, is the acronym, the initials of moach lev kaved, which means the brain, the heart, and the liver. And the reason that this is given as the acronym is because these were considered in ancient medicine, and still I think in modern medicine also for various reasons, to be the three centers of the human body. Each one served a different purpose. So the way that this was understood in the Middle Ages was that the brain, the moach, the mem of melech, is the ruler of all the person's will. That's where the will is and where obviously thought is. Even though, by the way, this is a very big, this is quite a controversial topic. Do we really think with our brain? Is the brain really capable of thought? Is consciousness in the brain? And all these things. It's not so clear that that's the way it is. Earlier, they thought that the heart was the seat of consciousness. And so we have this left over, by the way. It's not just left over as an artifact, but it's left over as something that we all feel. That a lot of times when people say I, most people will point to themselves here where their heart is. Most people won't say like this, I. Even though we even feel today that our consciousness is somewhere between the eyes. So there was the mind of the thought that was in the either the brain or the heart. Certainly the emotions were associated with the heart. And then the liver was considered to be the lower part of man, and this started out already in the early Babylonian period, probably even before that there was an understanding that the diaphragm divides the body into two. So whatever is above the diaphragm is more spiritual, whatever is below the diaphragm is less spiritual. That is carried over today even in Jewish practice, and the fact that there's a almost halacha, but not everybody performs it, so let's say that it's a tradition that before we pray, we divide our body in two by using some kind of belt that we tie around our waist to divide between everything that's above the diaphragm and everything that's below the diaphragm. In any case, these were considered to be the three centers. So it's moach lev kaved, the acronym mem lamed chaf, which spells melech. And the idea was like this, that if the moach comes first, if you are guided by your brain, by your mind, then you are a king, because then the heart and the liver will follow the brain, the mind. However, if you are governed by your liver, meaning you're governed by your lower base instincts, then you are, instead of being a lemech, if you write these letters backwards, kaf lamed mem, so you get klum, then you're nothing. You're like you lose everything that's possible for a person to gain in life and gain from life. So somebody asked me a very interesting question. She said, is there a source for this? And I said right away, I don't know of an early source. This is something that just makes sense. I don't know exactly when it was developed, maybe sometime in the Middle Ages, maybe even in the modern era. It's not, I don't think it's clear. You can do research on it and try to figure out where the first place that this is mentioned is. It might be that it's in the Zohar. I don't remember it being in the Zohar. But then she said she also heard that this could be moach lev klayot. This could also be the heart, the mind, the brain, the heart, and the kidneys. And she said, is this correct? Can it be correct that it can also be the kidneys? So I went quickly to our repository of all of Rev Ginsburg's teachings, and the first thing I found was I put in these two acronyms with either kaved, with liver, or klayot, and I find that he's talked about it in the past, and he said really both explanations are fine. They both mean pretty much the same thing. The liver and the kidneys perform similar functions, he said. That's how we left it. He didn't really get into the details. So this question was in my mind when on Wednesday's reading, the fourth reading, it talks about something that I guess I only noticed this year, although I think I always knew this, that when a korban, a peace sacrifice, a peace offering, shlamim, is brought, then there are only, because most of the peace sacrifice is eaten by the owner of the sacrifice, the person who's bringing the sacrifice to the temple. What's put on the altar? So what's always put on the altar is the kidneys and their fat. Now this fat on the kidneys is not just any fat. This is actually the adrenal glands. So the adrenal glands sit on top of kidneys in an animal also. They look like a pyramid-shaped structure, and they're fatty. They're a gland, like all the glands. Glands are like fat. So the kidney with the fat on top of it is placed on the altar from a peace offering, and this is the other interesting thing, that also the fat that is covering the liver. That's all that's put on the altar. That's all that's burned from the peace offering. Everything else can be eaten by the owner. So here we see right away that the kidneys and the liver go together. Still, we have to understand what is the difference between the kidney and the livers, and why are they the part of the animal that's placed on the altar, meaning that's burnt on the altar, that's consumed. So there are really two reasons for why we act in a base and coarse way, and that we're not able to refine ourselves. And they have to do with the liver and the kidneys. The liver represents the instincts that we have in us apparently from birth, and that we can spend our entire lives refining. Hopefully we're getting them better. However, the liver itself represents that I sinned, I did something wrong, and here by a peace offering, it's not necessarily that I did something wrong, but that I'm coming closer to God by saying, I am giving up on these baser instincts. I'm consuming them on the altar, I'm burning them away. So vicariously, by doing this to the animal, I also experience the same thing by me. And this is the most important principle of all Jewish worship, that when we do something, when we perform an act here below, as the Maggid of Mezrich explained, the whole purpose is to awaken God above to do the same thing. So what is God doing? He's saying, if you're burning the liver of your animal soul, which here is again vicariously through the animal that's being sacrificed, then I too will burn your liver, as it were. Then I also take back and am willing to consume the instincts, the baser instincts that you have, and hopefully through this awakening we can elevate ourselves to a new level of service. But there's another reason for the iniquities that we do, for the sins that we do, and becoming, not being so close to God, and wanting to come closer through the peace offering, through the shlamim. And that is the kidneys. The kidneys represent something entirely different. The kidneys don't represent an innate instinct that we have. Rather, the kidneys represent the habits that we have acquired over time. In other words, the kidneys represent the habits that the person takes on through his life. So if I have a bad habit, that bad habit is governed by the kidneys. I once gave a long class about how this could be related to the adrenal glands and to the fight or flight response, and there's many other parts to it. But in essence, all these habits that we have, and we want to consume them. We want to burn them on the altar in order to develop new habits, to have something new that we can work with. And the interesting thing is that when you have a good habit, it's very easy to lose it. When you have a bad habit, it's very hard to get rid of. So this whole idea of the sacrifice, of the peace offering, using these two, or placing these two organs, the liver, kaved, or the kidneys, klayot, both starting with kaf, they have to do with how you become a king over your life. You have to, in a sense, consume, get rid of the baser instincts, and you do this by burning the fat over the liver. You have to have some base instincts without which you can't live, but the fat part of it, the part of indulgence in these baser instincts, that you have to consume, that you have to annihilate. And in the same way, any of the negative habits that you've acquired over your life, over your time here in this world, you also have to burn on the altar. You also have to consume it, and you have to relearn new habits that will be something positive. So that's an interesting way of explaining why Melech, king, is both Moach, Lev, Kaved, the brain, the heart, and the liver, and it's also Moach, Lev, Klayot. It's also the brain, the heart, and the kidneys. So I wish you good Shabbos, and hope to see everyone on Sunday. It should be okay. I'll try to join you on Sunday also. Shabbat Shalom.
Good Shabbos, Rabbi.
Shabbat Shalom, Robert.
Shalom.